An opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Please be seated. So we meet in Gauteng to consider very, very important issues. One of them is the issue of the pandemic, as you all know, but the other is a matter related to the municipality of Tshwane. Without getting into details, because these matters are going to be dealt with by the House, I'm sure we'll do everything possible to give due attention. I'm sure we'll do everything possible to ensure that we give due attention as we grapple with the matters. Honourable members, I'm told that the whipper has agreed that there'll be no notice of motion or motions without notice. So we'll move straight on to the statement by the Deputy Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson of the NCOP, Honorable Amos Masondo, and our Deputy Chair of the NCOP, Honorable Sylvia Lucas, the Honorable Speaker of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature, Honorable Mehwe, and all honorable members of the National Council of Provinces. Let me take this opportunity to thank you for inviting the Ministry of Health to come and share with you some ideas and information about the major challenge, which is not only facing us as South Africans, but also facing the entire globe. Here, Honorable Chair, we indeed talking about the outbreak of the coronavirus, also called COVID-19, which started just as an outbreak in one city in the province of Hubei in China, developed into what now the World Health Organization has defined as a pandemic. This started at the end of December 2019, but the actual pathogen, this COVID-19, was isolated and confirmed by the Chinese medical specialists and the WHO on the 7th of January 2020. So it's quite a new organism, which has taken the world by storm indeed. Now, this is a new strain of a virus that causes, in most cases, a mild upper respiratory tract infection, and in some cases develop into a lower respiratory tract infection, which can also lead to a very serious pneumonia. It's a virus which is derived from animals. It's thought to have originated from bats, which, as I've already mentioned, starts usually with a mild flu-like symptoms, including high fever, dry cough, tiredness, and in most cases, it comes out with 80% of the cases just ends as a mild flu-like syndrome. But in about 15 to 20% of people, it can then develop into a more serious form of a lower respiratory tract infection, leading to pneumonia, and also what is in medical terms called fibrosis of the lungs, which means over and above leading to inflammation of the lungs. It also causes the soft tissue of the lungs to be hardened and therefore leads to difficulty in breathing. And in 5% of people where it becomes serious, it requires ventilation because of, as I've mentioned, by causing fibrosis in the lungs, makes it difficult to breathe, so your body is not able to retain enough oxygen. So when it comes to that situation, then you require ventilation for a period until the lungs recover, which is the reason why, as you might have followed, part of the discussion, including just so yesterday, where in the US, President Trump was talking about pumping a lot of money into production of ventilators because of that kind of complication. And on average, about 3 to 3.5% of cases, it leads to death. In order to detect the COVID-19, samples are taken from the throat, from the back of the throat, from the pharynx, through a swab, and sent to laboratory for testing. The test will only be positive if a person has an active disease. However, the test does not identify persons who are incubating the virus. Now, maybe at the later stage, one would also just come back to this fact, but it's an important fact because what it says is that I know a number of people through the media have been raising questions to say, if the health department and government generally is saying that we are doing screening at the ports of entry, including at the airport, how come almost 99% thus far of the people who have ended up being positive, 99% of them are people who had traveled, but how come they were not picked up at the airport? That is because you have an incubation period which ranges between 2 and 14 days. And in that period, if a person is in incubation, in other words, having none of the symptoms which I've mentioned here, high fever, dry cough, tiredness, and sneezing, if none of those is already manifested, when you do even if you were to do the laboratory test, you would not be able to pick up the virus. And one of the most prominent of those symptoms is high fever. So that's why we use those scanners, because if you then find somebody with a high fever, the likelihood, if they've got the virus, if you do that swab and take to the laboratory, you have a possibility of then finding the virus. The virus is spread through two methods: breathing and coughing, sneezing, the droplets from, as you cough and sneeze, there's droplets which comes out from your cough. And if those droplets come across another person within 1 meter, 1.5 meters distance, then that person can inhale those and get infected. The other way is if those droplets land on the surface, and while the virus is still active, if somebody then touches that surface, and then after touching that surface with the virus still active, touches the mouth, the nose, or the eyes, then the virus is transmitted that way. So the best way to prevent these droplets is to keep a safe distance, as we've mentioned, 1 meter to 1.5 meter, and avoid also mass gatherings. The best way to prevent direct contact of the virus is to avoid touching your mouth, nose, eyes, and to wash the hands frequently, because as with soap and water, or also using an alcohol-based sanitizer, which will be able to kill the virus. Also cleaning the surfaces where people touch regularly, so that when somebody else touches, if they've had that virus, it doesn't transmit to the next individual. All in all, individuals are encouraged to keep away from mass gatherings, and those who are in hospital that will have to make sure that they are covered with masks and gloves to make sure that they not transmit the virus. As I've mentioned, this was isolated on the 7th of January after the outbreak in China. Now, where are we currently? At the current moment, as of today, the updated statistics through the WHO indicate that 219,000 people have been infected worldwide as of early this morning. Now, out of that, if you look at the breakdown, 85,000 of the people out of the 219 have already recovered. 124,000 is still in active stage. That is globally. 124,000 is still in active stage of the virus. 85,000 have already recovered. There's already been just under 9,000 deaths throughout the world, 3-point-something thousand in China, and then the rest, distributed all over the world. Now, so in terms of where there have been an outcome, either recovery or death, when you look at the statistics, out of 94,700, we've had 91% recovery, and the death rate has been 9% out of where there's been an outcome. For those who are still in active phase, 118,000 are in mild form of the disease, and 7,000 are in a serious form of the disease. Now, in terms of just a brief breakdown, honorable members, currently in terms of totals, the total in China as of early this morning was 81,000. With the new infections in China have been dropping drastically, generally below 40, below 30, sometimes even around 20. As of early this morning, the new infections in China as a whole were only 34. In terms of Italy, the total infections currently standing just over 35,700. In Iran, 17,000. In Spain, 14,000. In Germany, 12,300. USA, 9,400. In France, 9,100. And those are the top countries in terms of the infection. In the African continent, the infection rate is still fairly low comparatively compared to what it is in other parts of the world, especially in your Asia, China, South Korea, Europe, and also if you look at in Australia and those areas. So Africa and also to some extent South America, the figures are still comparatively low. Egypt is leading in the African continent. It's just below 200 in Egypt, if they have not passed by this morning. I haven't checked the update. As we know that in South Africa, the last report, we're still waiting adjustment. As of yesterday, we're sitting at 116. So I've already mentioned that the infection rate in China has been declining. It's been standing total figures has been not just around 80,000 for almost a week now, with daily new infections being around 20, 30 per day. Whereas in Europe, on an average daily basis, if you look at Italy, you find on a daily basis over 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. In Spain as well, the same thing. Germany also, all the European countries, the UK started slow as well. So the basic characteristic of the virus is that it comes slowly when it starts and then it explodes exponentially. So the WHO is monitoring the outbreak throughout the world on a daily basis. And as I've already mentioned that, on the 11th of March, the WHO then declared the outbreak as a pandemic, and already having been declared as a world disaster. So in view of the declaration of the pandemic, our National Cabinet on the 15th of March, last Sunday, took a number of decisions. These decisions, as we know, honorable members, were communicated by the President, having declared the outbreak as a national state of disaster, in imposing travel restrictions as of 18th of March, yesterday, from high-risk countries such as Italy, Iran, China, South Korea, Spain, UK, and USA, and also closing some of our land posts of ports of entry, and also 2 sea ports of entry, and also prohibiting gatherings of more than 100 people. And that announcement and declaration by the President also emphasized that all citizens, all of us should change our behavior in terms of regular hand washing, the things which I've mentioned, avoiding touching your eyes, nose, and also in terms of handshakes. I'm sure now we are all getting familiar with, the elbow greeting. So that's really what the President has already, advised all of us to do. Now, in our own country, we've also not been spared, as I've mentioned, that our rate has also been monitored, and it's been rising. Our first case, as honorable members would remember, on the 27th of February, from a group of 10 who had traveled to Italy, detected in the KZN province. Since then, I've already mentioned the number we've been monitoring on a daily basis. It is also worrying because almost every day, in the beginning, in the first few days, it was all confined to the 10 travelers to Italy. But over the last 10 days or so, all the numbers have been rising, and it's been largely people who have traveled mainly to Europe, but also we've been picking up from the US as well. Currently, in terms of this, the numbers in our country, breakdown per province, we have a highest number of infections in the Gauteng province as of yesterday, standing at 61, Western Cape at 31, KwaZulu-Natal 19. So yeah, maybe let me not go into the total figures. So honorable members, the message is very clear, as pronounced by the President, that we have a responsibility as individuals, but also we have responsibilities as communities, as individuals, to make sure basic hygiene, and also in our families and whatever institutions we lead, but also as organizations, in terms of, as organizations, in terms of making sure that we avoid the things which have been said, largely in terms of gatherings. Okay, Chair. Let me just conclude, Honorable Chairperson, by thanking the leadership of various communities in the country. We are very grateful that through the initiative of the President, all political parties have supported the initiatives of government, civil society generally, also religious organizations which the President is meeting as we're meeting here today, to galvanize them also to support the initiatives which the government have announced. And we call on all of us as public representatives, wherever we'll be during this recess, to make sure that we spread the message and galvanize our communities to fall in line with these announcements by the President. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
No, thank you very much, Deputy Minister. Of course, the issue that we're discussing is so important. And the information from the Deputy Minister is very, very critical. So we just allowed him to spill over just a little bit. But I'm sure everything possible will be done to ensure that the speech is circulated and that members really familiarize themselves with the content. It's critical. This information is very, very important. I'm sure Honorable Mchabileng will agree as we move into the future in the coming few days, weeks, and months. The next speaker is Honorable Gillian.
Chairperson, the ANC welcomes the decisive measures announced by President Cyril Ramaphosa on Sunday, 15 March 2020, declaring a national disaster to enable South Africa to take the necessary measures to fight this pandemic. Having an informed understanding of the virus is of utmost importance, so as to avoid falling victim to fake news. South Africans have a responsibility of ensuring information that is verified by credible sources is not spread. We commend the work done by the National Department of Health. They have a very active social media presence to keep the nation abreast on all the latest developments pertaining to this virus. There is a WhatsApp number for all news and answering of questions related to the coronavirus. That number is 060-012-3456. As the ANC, we wish to commend all community health workers, nurses and doctors who are working tirelessly to ensure that the health and safety of the nation is upheld. Your selfless contribution does not go unnoticed. We call on all institutions and all sectors, both public and private, to adhere to the restrictions on public gatherings. In this regard, what is required of us all is to implement social distance as best as we can, while still adhering to good hygiene practices. It is through our collective efforts that we will be able to fight this outbreak. We need not to panic and be engulfed by fear, and respond accordingly by panic buying and taking other drastic measures. We need to hear the calls made by the President and his cabinet, and trust that the government has the capacity to conquering this outbreak. South Africa possesses the necessary knowledge and means to fight this disease if we act swiftly and collectively to minimize its impact. I also believed, and as the ANC, we believe that together we too shall overcome this. I thank you.
Is it on? Oh, you're on. Thank you, Honorable Chair. South Africa is a nation that has proven over time that we can overcome any obstacle when we are united. The coronavirus is as such no exception to that resilient determination of this nation. It is therefore of critical importance that all South Africans should heed the call or pronouncement by President Cyril Ramaphosa that we are on a state of national disaster. All precautionary measures by the President and the team of ministers led by Minister Zweli Mkhize are important for all of us to abide by. The Democratic Alliance, through the party leader John Steenhuisen, has given its full support and commitment in the fight against COVID-19. All endeavors must be made to ensure that our communities are educated on the do's and don'ts to curb the spread of the virus. All communication mediums must be used to reach every citizen of our country. The DA has suspended all party activities, and all our staff members, most of them, are working on remote from home. This is to ensure that where we can, we minimize the spread of the virus. We call on all South Africans to work with health authorities for screening, quarantine if required, and obey directives of our health authorities. COVID-19 figures are growing daily. Therefore, it is important that the Minister of Health or anyone delegated by his office gives us daily updates to keep the nation informed. This will clamp down on the space that is taken by fake news and misinformation. We need to break the chain of infections if we are to stop the spread of COVID-19. That is why travel restrictions, self-quarantine, and good hygiene practices, like washing our hands regularly, are crucial. We appeal to all South Africans to be considerate and compassionate for one another. This is not the time to stockpile on groceries. Purchase what you need in the short term of a week to ensure that there's enough for everybody. If we work together as the private sector, government and society at large, we can defeat this pandemic. I thank you, Chairperson.
Then be followed by Honorable Bacha will be followed by Honorable Mukausi.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, this is not a disease of black people. This is not a disease of white people. Therefore, we urge all parties to equally participate irrespective of race. Minister, this is the first time post-1994 that we have a pandemic that is threatening the world in a manner that coronavirus is doing. We have made a commitment yesterday when the Commander-in-Chief and President of the EFF met the President of this country that we are going to support all initiatives of government and we are going to do our part through our membership and at the level of our constituency to make sure that our people are aware of what needs to happen. After all have been said and done, Minister, let us agree that coronavirus showed up when we need to pay more attention to primary health care. Public health care should be about prevention. Let's also agree that the experience of coronavirus, or rather the threat, should be seen as an opportunity to repurpose our public health care to be more service-orientated rather than profit. We cannot continue to have a situation wherein few individuals are the ones who are fortunate enough to get medical attention at Netcare, Mediclinic, One Life, and other private hospitals in affluent areas, while our people depend on public health and which has completely collapsed. When we are done with dealing with coronavirus, Honorable Minister, we are proposing the following. Even in the context of NHI, if you continue with it in its current proposal, which we highly discourage, let's have a program in your department with a dedicated DDG that focuses on health education and health promotion. Don't wait on the EFF private members bill to amend the National Health Act for clinics to open 24 hours. This is the time, Minister. Let's create polyclinics in every ward. It might sound unrealistic, but it is thoroughly planned. If it's thoroughly planned and there is no looting, it's possible. In this way, we have some form of health service of all practitioners in every community, and we can begin to focus on prevention and profiling communities so that we can educate more. Chair, at this time of crisis, we are pleading with Minister, don't wait for media to start asking too many questions. So far, the communication has been forward. Let's improve on it. And in that manner, our communities will comfortably knowing that government is treating this matter very seriously. This should include telling people statistics by gender, age, and their locality. That will actually reduce this misinformation that this kind of disease is only for white people. Thank you.
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Deputy Minister, today we face together as a nation an unprecedented attack by an invisible enemy. Yesterday, the official number of confirmed cases was 116. We have broken the 100-case mark, and precautionary measures must be immediately implemented in order to flatten the curve of the continuing spread of the virus. The IFP has said that this is not the time for panic, hysteria, and misinformation. It is time for wisdom and responsible action. We urge all South Africans to heed the professional instructions of avoiding social contact, seeking medical advice if ill, washing hands regularly, self-isolation if instructed to do so, using disposable tissue when coughing or sneezing, and keeping a safe distance from one another in public. Ngqongqoshe sengiphetha, ngiyafisa ukuthi nethimba lakho kwenihlale phansi nibheke ngoba uma umuntu ephuma phesheya eza la ngiyamcwaninga. Akwenicwaninga abasuke emadolobheni beye emakhaya. Ngoba njengoba sisemadolobheni nje siney'ndaweni ey'minyene. Sizosuka siye emakhaya siyothelela abantu nje abangenalutho abamsulwa. Besicela ukuthi manihlezi nethimba lakho kwenibheke ukuthi asisuki nalento emadolobheni siye na emakhaya. Ngoba uma yafika emakhaya liyobhubha izwe lesilwane. Ngiyabonga.
On to Honorable S.E. Lucas.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable Members, Special Delegates, everyone present here. Martin Luther King Jr. said the following, and I quote, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenges and controversy," close quote. Before I continue, let me appreciate the fact that I could see that this pandemic have truly united us as South Africans. We have a common purpose and we have unity of purpose with regards to this specific issue. And that is something that we appreciate much, Honorable Minister. This is a medical emergency that is faced by the world, far graver than what we have experienced in over a century. The World Health Organization has declared the coronavirus outbreak as a global pandemic. And if we have listened to the statistics as given by the Deputy Minister this morning, it confirmed the correctness of this decision by the World Health Organization. Never before in the history of our democracy has our country been confronted with such a situation. And now that the President has declared a state of disaster in terms of the Disaster Management Act, it has set in motion varied processes to implement an integrated and coordinated disaster mechanism which will focus on preventing and reducing the outbreak of the virus across the country. Honourable members, I want to speak on behalf of Parliament and say that we have come to the realization that this pandemic will severely disrupt our program and our activities. And that is why there was a special meeting convened between presiding officers, Chief Whip and party representatives, and we've been briefed by the Chief Whip of the majority party in order to make sure that there is immediate interventions devised by Parliament in line with the announcement of the President of a national state of disaster on Sunday, the 15th of March. Yesterday, the NA rised, and NCOP will rise today. And we will then be on constituency period up until the 13th of April 2020, when further assessment will be done. And after that assessment, we will decide how we are going to take our program forward. But there is also some measures that have been devised by Parliament, inclusive of the screening of members for possible exposure to the coronavirus. I hope we will have time to do it as the NCOP. We also devised a number of interventions to ensure the protection of the parliamentary community and visitors, including the installation of our measures of hand sanitizers, availability of on-site medical support team for screening and testing. We have also made the decision to suspend the operations of Parliament and to close Parliament to the public until further notice. I've also been informed that some of the staff members have been informed that they should isolate, is it isolate or quarantine, up until, for about 14 days to make sure that we are safe. Our members will also continue to spread this message during this constituency period to make sure that the correct message goes out. Like other members have said here, The spreading of fake news is only when we allow for fake news to be spread if we are not in direct contact with our constituents. And that is what we are trying to do. But also we would love to call on municipalities to make sure that, particularly in informal settlements, people should then have access to water. If you speak about hygiene, you speak about the use of water and about the access to water. And we would like to call on municipalities to ensure that our people in informal settlements have access to water, particularly just as a basic means to make sure that we have access to hygiene. But also we want to commend the health workers and the volunteers that are always ready to assist patients that need to be assisted, and it is commendable that you didn't hear from the side of the health workers that there is any issue with regards to being ready to assist the communities with that. I think the time is now most befitting for us as Parliament to imbue within ourselves a greater sense of political maturity, a greater sense of leadership. We must make sure that we work together, and I'm glad to find that parties have committed themselves today that we are going to work together across the political spectrum to ensure that we give hope and that we give clarity to our constituencies. As Parliament, we are also committed to make sure that we implement the measures that have been outlined by government in a response to the virus. In conclusion, Honourable Chairperson, I would like to just quote the Honourable former President Thabo Mbeki when he said, and I quote, "Gloom and despondency have never defeated adversity. Trying times needs courage and resilience. Our strength as a people is not tested during the best of times. We therefore call on all South Africans to join efforts with us as with our government to ensure we deal with the coronavirus. We also want to commend the religious sector, because particularly for Christians, Easter or Passover is a very, very important event on their agenda. It is a very important time for reflection and also for making sure that we as Christians, or the Christians in this country, get together and make sure that they observe Passover. But all the religious communities, all the different ones, they have actually heed the call of the President, and we need to commend them because we need them in these trying times. So, and also we want to once again say, united we stand, divided we fall. And I thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Deputy Chair of the NCOP. Honourable members, in keeping with the practice and tradition, let us thank the Deputy Minister for responding to the call of the NCOP to debate the coronavirus question. Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. That, honourable members, concludes the debate. I'll call on the Secretary to read the following order.
Consideration of report of Select Committee on Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Water and Sanitation and Human Settlements. Notice of intervention issued in terms of Section 139(1)(c) of the Constitution to City of Tshwane Metropolitan Municipal Council.
Honourable Dodovu.
Honorable Chairperson of the NCOP, Deputy Minister of Health, permanent and special delegates of the NCOP, all protocol observed. Yesterday, the 18th of March, the Select Committee of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs in the NCOP concluded its two-day visit to the City of Tshwane Metropolitan Municipality, where it fully investigated the circumstances under which the Provincial Government of Gauteng invoked Section 139(1)(c) of the Constitution. The City of Tshwane is not only the single largest metropolitan municipality in our country, but is also the administrative capital of South Africa. This city has the second largest number of embassies in the world after Washington, D.C.,
and therefore many people across the global village call it their home. Honorable Chair, by invoking Section 1391C of the Constitution, the Gauteng Provincial Government expressed a cogent message that needs no other interpretation. And the message was that the Tshwane municipality was unable to fulfill its executive obligations in terms of the Constitution, and that exceptional circumstances exist warranting its dissolution. This intervention was subject to Section 1393, which calls for the Gauteng government to immediately submit a written notice of dissolution to the Minister of Culture, to the relevant provincial legislature, and to the NCOP, and that the dissolution would take effect 14 days from the date of receipt of the notice by the NCOP, unless it was set aside by the Cabinet Minister or the NCOP before the expiry of those 14 days. During its visits to Tshwane, the Select Committee of this House, which is a multi-party committee consisting of 12 members from the ANC, DA, EFF, and IFP, interacted with both the internal and external stakeholders in order to solicit their views and opinions on the constitutional, procedural, and substantive matters relating to the invocation of Section 1391C. During this visit, the Select Committee received presentations from 6 of the 7 political parties represented in Council, as well as from some, the trade union, SALGA, the traditional leadership, the youth forums, the women forums, the business federations, as well as the civic movements. All these presentations by stakeholders were preceded by a submission from the MEC of Kokta in Gauteng, Honorable Lebogang Maile, who presented the circumstances and reasons which led to the decision to dissolve the Tshwane Metropolitan Council. And this broadly include the following: that the municipality was dysfunctional, and for more than 2 months, the council meetings were not taking place as a result of disruptions, walkouts, and the unlawful conduct of the speaker. That there is paralysis in the municipality because there is no executive mayor, no mayoral committee, and no substantive city manager. That because the council has not established ward committees, this undermines participatory democracy in its affairs. Honorable Maile also indicated to us that since the 2006 post-local government elections, the city has experienced serious governance challenges ranging from the appointment of the city manager, motions of no confidence to the mayor and speaker, allegations of widespread corruption, maladministration, and inefficiencies. That irregular appointment of staff and the unlawful awarding of tenders was causing major financial losses for the city. That the city has serious challenges of water quality, especially in Hammanskraal and surrounding areas where its quality was found to be unsustainable for human consumption by statutory bodies. That the water shortage was a high risk for the municipality as it posed health hazards in communities, in schools, as well as in the Jubilee Hospital, which had to be closed and its patients transferred to other areas. That despite obtaining unqualified audit opinions, the city has accumulated problems of unauthorized, irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditures with no plans to curb them. According to the provincial government of Gauteng, all the above problems have not only placed the Tshwane municipality in a dysfunctional state, but they have also impeded the municipality from fulfilling its executive obligations in terms of the Constitution. The Gauteng government stated that in order to address these problems, it issued directives in terms of Section 1391A to address the crisis situation. Premised on the above, Honorable Chair, and based on its investigation on the state of municipality of Tshwane and the interaction that it made with internal and external stakeholders, it is the considered view of the Select Committee that exceptional circumstances do exist to warrant the invocation of Section 1391C of the Constitution in Tshwane. That the existing of special circumstances is a special prerequisite to the exercise of power to dissolve a municipal council. That in this particular case, all the remedies to the situation were followed and observed without any success. Given the collapse of the municipal council meetings, the leadership challenges, vacant position of the city manager, executive mayor and mayor, the water challenges, the non-establishment of ward committees, amongst others, all this paralyzed the capacity of the municipality to manage its affairs and to deliver basic services to the residents, as well as to provide accountable government for the people of Tshwane. Therefore, the Select Committee submits that the decision to intervene in terms of Section 1391C of the Constitution under these exceptional circumstances is both justified and warranted, since all forms of support in terms of Section 154 of the Constitution and the directives in terms of Section 1391A were exhausted. All parties except the DA supported this form of intervention. It is also important, however, to state, Honorable Chair, that the DA's argument is that failure to appoint the executive mayor of Tshwane is the failure of the councillors to attend meetings, especially by the ANC, by the EFF, and that is a problem according to the DA. Having conducted the oversight visit to the city of Tshwane and interacted with internal and external stakeholders, and acknowledging the declaration made by the President of the Republic on measures to combat the COVID-19 virus, the Select Committee on COCTA recommends the following to the House: that the NCOP approves the intervention in the city of Tshwane Metropolitan Municipality in terms of Section 139C of the Constitution, that a seasoned, competent, and capable administrator be appointed in the city of Tshwane and be supported by a team of experts with clear terms of reference, that the administrator should fast-track the process of appointing and filling the position of city manager, that the MEC of COCTA in Gauteng should institute a forensic investigation in terms of Section 106 of the Municipal Systems Act on all allegations of corruption and financial management, and table a report to the NCOP and to the Gauteng Provincial Legislature, that the MEC of COCTA should quarterly report to the NCOP on the status of the intervention in the municipality, including the termination report, that the Select Committee on COCTA should, in cooperation with the relevant portfolio committee in Gauteng Provincial Legislature, conduct a follow-up oversight visit after the by-elections in order to evaluate progress made in respect of the intervention in the municipality. And lastly, that the Independent Electoral Commission, the IEC, should develop an implementation plan on the by-elections, taking into account the presidential declaration made on the 15th of March 2020 on the measures to combat COVID-19 so as to facilitate fair and free elections. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dodovu. And that concludes the debate. I shall now put the question. The question is that the report be adopted, but in accordance with Rule 71, I shall first allow provinces the opportunity to make their declarations of the vote if they so wish. Any province wishing to make a declaration? Western Cape? Let's start with the Western Cape, then Korea, Dango, and the Eastern Cape. In that order. No, start. Yeah, yes.
Achtbare voorzitter. The sudden rush to have the NCOP certify the Gauteng Provincial Government's intervention in the Tshwane municipality is nothing short of political exploitation of an independent national legislative body and incorrect interpretation of the Constitution. Based on the list of reasons provided by the provincial government, the choice of a Section 139(1)(c) intervention is not warranted, as these reasons refer to a mix of executive and financial obligation that the municipality has been accused of not fulfilling. When it comes to the failure of fulfilling executive obligation, a Section 139(1)(b) or 1A or B should be firstly be executed. That would see the provincial government either notify the municipality where they have failed and provide steps to amend or assume the responsibility of the executive obligation. Section 139(5) dictates the necessity for the provincial government to impose a recovery plan should the municipality fail to meet their financial commitments that compromise service delivery, such as the one listed in the notice of intervention. Instead, what we have now is a provincial government avoiding their constitutional role by rushing to what seems to them as a quick fix. The intervention was only referred to the NCOP last week, leaving the select committee of COCTA with very little unprecedented time for adequate engagement. Salga was afforded no opportunity for engagement before the intervention was issued. They further noted that the dissolution of council and new election could just again result in no party obtaining a majority, risking the municipality with a hung council and no political leadership. An additional problem with the Tshwane Council is the failure of councillors to attend meetings and elect a mayor they are constitutionally obligated to, rather than a dissolution of council. Action should be taken against these councillors who contravened the code of conduct. It is further irregular for this council to prioritize the Tshwane intervention over those of other interventions that have been with the NCOP for several weeks, such as Maluti Apufong in the Free State and Mogalakwena in Limpopo. The NCOP has a constitutional role to investigate whether any intervention in the municipalities and provinces are justified and in accordance with the spirit of our constitution and cooperative governance. After yesterday's select committee meeting, it is evident that Section 139(1)(c) in Tshwane is not reasonable and not in the best interest of the residents of Tshwane. I thank you, Bayedanki. We don't support it.
Thank you very much. We will now proceed to Honorable Koia, Northern Cape.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I rise on behalf of the Northern Cape in support of the recommendations by the Select Committee on Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs to dissolve the dysfunctional Council of Tshwane Metropolitan Municipality in the interest of service delivery to the people of Tshwane. Our support is based on the fact that the majority of stakeholders in that municipality, both internally and externally, concur that the municipality is in a state of paralysis and has dismally failed to deliver deserved services to the people of Tshwane. The continued collapse of council meetings and the excessive political bickering, as well as the total disrespect of rules and orders by the council, and the failure to apply the rules, all those are testimony to a paralyzed institution that is unable to fulfill its constitutional mandate. The fact that Tshwane Metro has failed to elect an executive mayor since the resignation of Stevens Mukhalapa is a confirmation of a crisis of the highest proportions. The absence of the executive mayor has a ripple effect in that there is no mayoral committee and there is no oversight provided on the administration. Section 79 committees have not performed their duties in line with the Municipal Structures Act. Public participation has been negatively affected by the absence of ward committees since the election of that council in 2006. This means that the community has never been represented in the compilation of the IDP. It is an insult to the people of Tshwane and a clear flouting of the Municipal Systems Act in relation to public participation. Honorable Chairperson, Tshwane Metro
Can I really take this opportunity, honorable members?
with no room for progress.
Go here, just a minute. Can I make a plea that even if we heckle, do so in a way that does not allow for the drowning of the speaker. Let us not deny other people the right to hear the points that are being raised by the speaker. Thank you very much.
Tshwane Metro has reached a political cul-de-sac with no room for progress. The council has not even been able to unite on issues of service delivery. The case in point is the lack of provision of clean drinking water to the people of Hammanskraal, who are predominantly African working class, that has been subjected to drinking water infested with worms. The people of Tshwane deserve better than the raw deal they have now been subjected to. Therefore, let us allow them to take their destiny in their own hands. We support the dissolution in the interest of the people. Finally, Chair, we need to dispel the myth that there are attempts to wrestle power. There are no attempts to wrestle power here. There's no outright winner in Tshwane. So people should not behave as if they have control of Tshwane. The DA was given a favor. Finally, Chair, Amilcar Cabral says, hide nothing from the masses of our people. Tell no lies. Expose lies whenever they are told. Mask no difficulties, mistakes, and failures. So, Chair, we want to support
as it concludes.
the dissolution of that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Dango. Honorable Dango.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Yes. Yes, what's the point of order?
In terms of Rule 71,
Just hold on, Dango. Yes, Honorable Makause.
House Chairperson, I'm making a plea. When these provinces are making declaration, we can't be subjected to mediocrity. These are ANC failures in Tshwane. So we can't be told of all these things. They must make declarations and get it. We can't be subjected to
That, honorable members, is not a point of order, but a point of view by a member. Honorable Dango, please proceed. Dango.
Chairperson, thank you very much. I rise in terms of Rule 71. The Gauteng delegation supports the report and the recommendations that flow from it. From the submissions by the majority of stakeholders, it is evident that the Tshwane municipality is non-functional. Consequently, the said local authority is unable to fulfill its obligations of delivering services required to the citizens of the city. The dissolution of the said local authority and the appointment of an administrator followed by elections at a date to be determined by the IEC is in the public interest. I so submit. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Let's proceed to the Eastern Cape.
very much. Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I rise on behalf of the Eastern Cape to support the report of the Select Committee on Corporate Governance and Traditional Affairs, particularly its recommendation for invocation of Section 139 1C of the Constitution in Tshwane Metropolitan Municipality. We base our support on the following, Chair: that the city have failed to table the annual report in terms of Section 127(2) of the Municipal Finance Management Act. Section 129 of the same act compels the municipality to adopt the report. Section 127(5) direct the accounting officer, which they do not have, Chair, to make the report public so that the members of the public are able to make interaction with the report. And Chair, the last leg will be to submit the report to the Auditor General and also the Gauteng Finance Department, and lastly, COCTA at a national level. They have failed to do so. The second one, Chair, they were unable to adopt the adjustment budget, Chair. In terms of Section 28 of the Municipal Management Act, which was supposed to happen in February, Chair, they failed to do so. And lastly, Chair, they have not adopted their draft IDP budget, Integrated Development Plan, in terms of the Systems Act of 2000. That is an obligation to do so, Chair, and also allow the members of the public to participate in that, including the traditional leaders. On those bases, Chair, as Eastern Cape was saying, we should be taking an urgent decision on the matter, and that decision must be within the prescript of the law. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you very much, Honorable Member. We shall now, members, proceed to the manual voting on the question, and the question is that the report be adopted. I shall now do this, take you through a process of voting, and will follow an alphabetical order and go from province to province. So the first province is the Eastern Cape. Please indicate your vote, Eastern Cape. Eastern Cape.
Eastern Cape iyayixhasa i-report.
Eastern Cape supports the report. The Free State.
Thanks, Chair. Free State supports the report.
Free State supports the report. Gauteng.
Gauteng supports the report. I have not relocated the chairperson. I just shifted seats.
Gauteng supports the report. KwaZulu-Natal. KwaZulu-Natal.
KwaZulu-Natal iyayeseka le report.
KwaZulu-Natal iyayeseka report. Limpopo.
Limpopo letekha report.
Limpopo support the report. Mpumalanga.
Mpumalanga iyayimukela i-report.
Mpumalanga iyayimukela i-report. Northern Cape.
Die Noord-Kaap ondersteun die verslag.
Noord-Kaap ondersteun the report. Northwest.
Northwest iyayamukela report ontate.
Northwest amukela report. Western Cape.
Die Wes-Kaap ondersteun nie die verslag.
The Western Cape does not support the report. So 8 provinces out of 9 support the report. Therefore, the report is declared as adopted in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. That, honorable members, concludes the business of the day. And members are requested to remain standing until the procession has left the chamber. The House is now adjourned.